Hi, my name's Jen. I'm at the Regional District of Kitimat-Stikine. I'm the Environmental Services Assistant, and so I take care of tracking waste as it comes through our landfills and reporting on landfill, monitoring environmental protection for, oh, sorry, not loud enough, for the landfills around our district. I think it's not tight. Oh, okay.
And my name is Nicki Veikle. I'm the Environmental Services Coordinator for the Regional District. And in my portfolio, I do project management, and my main project currently is developing the new solid waste management plan for the Regional District, which we'll discuss during our presentation.
All right, so we'll be presenting on the food waste management and solid waste planning. So, do we have a clicker? No. Okay. So could we go to the next slide? Awesome. All right, so a little overview of what a regional district is and does is, so the local government system in British Columbia is unique in Canada because in addition to 162 municipal governments, it has 27 regional districts. So we offer a whole bunch of services except for roads and policing. So this is determined by the regional board with the support of electors, but basically it comes down to local opinion. Regional districts are planning jurisdictions, and so they offer a whole wide range of services, and this includes solid waste management, which is our department that we're from. Other services might include fire protection or parks, economic development, and emergency services. Next slide. So a little overview of what we do at the RDKS to support local agriculture. So in the 60s and 70s, about 6,000 hectares of prime agricultural land. Oh, 60,000? Oh, okay. So about 60,000 hectares of prime agricultural land were being lost each year to urban and other uses. So the province decided to enact the BC Land Commission Act in '73 to try and protect agriculture. They established agriculture zones called the Agricultural Land Reserves, or ALRs, to protect this land. Through Investment Agriculture Plan of BC funding, the regional district prepared 2 planning documents to guide agricultural development in our region. These are namely the Greater Terrace Area Agricultural Plan, which was most recently updated in 2015, so it's pretty recent. And the other one would be the Greater Terrace Area Land, it's a tongue twister, the Greater Terrace Area Land, no land, Plan Report, which is complemented by the ALUI, the Agricultural Land Use Inventory. Lots of acronyms. So these documents enabled the regional district to scope out and better understand the state of agriculture in our area. These studies enabled our planners to identify real problems, inefficiencies, and basically areas for potential improvement. And this directs the future planning of our agricultural lands. So the district obtained the funding for our terrace area, but we're planning on obtaining more funding for other areas in our regional district. Next slide. Awesome. So, what's currently under development? Is that the right slide? Did we miss a slide? Do you want to go back too? Awesome. So the importance of agriculture is recognized and crucial to the local food security and environmentally beneficial as packaging and emissions associated with transportation are reduced. So today, in our regional district, 65,982 hectares of agricultural land reserves are within the terrace area. This was reported from the Ministry of Agriculture. So what the RDKS has done to support this, the ALR protection, is they've implemented some guidelines on agritourism and subdivision regulations, and there's a whole lot more to come. Now, next slide. Thanks. So what's currently under development? The Greater Terrace Area Land Use Agricultural Land-Based Plan, developed in 2013, had a whole lot of recommendations. And so this was really recently developed. So we're still undergoing more and more recommendation implementation. So one of the things that we've identified is a lot of agricultural land is located within floodplain regions. And so one of our projects currently is the Stikine River Channel Management Program, which Nikki is quite heavily involved in.
Yeah, so we're currently implementing the Stikine River Channel Management Study. And that is it's a hydrotechnical study of the Stikine River from looking at basically the hydrology of the river and erosion and floodplain impacts all the way from Kitsillas Canyon down to the Zimacord and then the lower reaches of the Copper River and the Kalem Rivers. So the outcome of this study is going to be updated floodplain mapping, which our current floodplain mapping is quite dated. It's from the 80s, although it has been updated in certain sections of the terrace area. And we're also going to be looking at some pre-engineering sort of out-of-the-box solutions for mitigating erosion control, so such as potentially like bioengineering or looking at removal of log jams, things like that. So that study is underway currently and will be complete by the end of 2019.
We also have recently talked to the agricultural land planners, and they're on their way of implementing an implementation bylaw, which is currently developing to enable implementation of recommendations made under the Land Use and Agriculture Base Land Report. So more developments are coming in 2019 and 2020, so stay tuned. Next slide.
And if anybody has questions or would like to see some of the recommendations that came out of the land use plan, we've got print copies, just 2 print copies up at the front, but those are also available on our website. And the implementation bylaw will be focusing on sort of a systematic approach to the recommendations, to looking at the recommendations that came out of that in 2015. So the planning, that is our planning department, that's their focus, and so you know, any questions that you may have, we can try to answer them at the end if you have any questions about the land use plan. As Jen mentioned, so we both work primarily in solid waste, and basically solid waste for the regional district is our primary and most expensive service that we offer. So what do we do to manage solid waste? We provide education and outreach. That's our biggest focus. We set up and facilitate the setup of recycling programs and work with extended producer responsibility programs within the regional district, and where no programs exist, we set them up ourselves. So most recently, we became a depot for Recycle BC in Stewart because their recycling depot closed its doors. We established policies and bylaws. We set up curbside collection programs for the Greater Terrace area residents. And then we received the waste from the City of Terrace's curbside program. We have recently developed a new state-of-the-art landfill. We've closed 2 landfills, developed 2 new transfer stations, upgraded 3 landfills, and we currently manage 5 landfills. So we've got a lot on our plate. We also conduct environmental monitoring and at our current landfill sites and our closed sites. And we do surface water, groundwater, wildlife monitoring. And we're currently developing pardon me?
I just want to make sure that we save enough time to talk about the food waste program.
Yep, absolutely. So we're developing a new solid waste management plan right now that ties into and is sort of the overarching theme for food waste.
You said you mentioned 2 types of water, one was surface water, what was the other?
Surface water and groundwater. Solid waste management plan basically is required by all regional districts, and it defines the regional services and programs, and it's basically developing a guide for reducing, reusing, and recycling and disposal of all of our waste for the next decade or more. So we do extensive consultation. You may have received the solid waste survey in your mailboxes. Hopefully everyone got them and hopefully completed them. We got excellent response from our regional district. It was astounding, actually. We've got over 800 responses in the month that the survey was running, which I feel is pretty excellent representation. And next slide, please. So, why I'm talking about the solid waste management plan. Basically, under the solid waste management plan, we are looking at a whole bunch of different strategies for reducing and reusing and recycling our waste. And so, if you could just advance. So the first one is food waste reduction strategy. That's what we're here to focus on today. And the next one are strategies to reduce the use of single-use items, which we will also touch on. So I'll hand it over to Jen.
Awesome. Next slide. So more than a third of food produced and distributed in Canada never gets eaten. In 2014, the value of this food waste was estimated at about $100 billion annually, and that's including all the subsurface values. So the very surface, your actual food wasted, they were approximated about $31 billion annually, but the associated costs underlying, that's about $100 billion annually. And if not, that's not disgusting, I don't know what is. This happens throughout the production cycle as well as consumer level. So here there's consumers, which is about 47%. There's processing, retailer stores, and everything down the line to transportation. So this retail value of food is estimated at over $1,500 on average per household, and about 63% of food that we dispose of is avoidable. Next slide. Oh, no, that's the one. So, what's the true cost of food waste? Uneaten, wasted food is only the tip of the iceberg. Ha ha ha. Resources used in food production are also wasted. This is seen in the diagram represented under here. I don't know if you can see that, but that's everything from labor, energy, transport, inventory, infrastructure, disposal costs, financial, and audits. That's a lot of money. Furthermore, landfilling food waste generates methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas about 25 times more harmful to the environment than carbon dioxide. And that's from the Government of Canada site. Next slide, please. Awesome. So, food waste. This is sort of like, our grocery stores aren't this bad. I just found this as a good example to see, like, on a larger scale, commercial scale, this is what it could look like in a lot of places around the world. Fresh food is being thrown out. So food waste can be divided into two categories, avoidable and unavoidable. Avoidable food waste could have been eaten. This includes some things like bread crust that some people don't eat, and food that can be eaten when an item is prepared but one way but not another. So like potato skins. Some people might boil potatoes with their skins on. Also, rotting foods like peppers that could have been eaten, the fleshy stuff that everyone likes. Avoidable food waste consists of portions of that food that are not eaten under normal circumstances, like bones, no one does that, eggshells, no one eats eggshells, and tea bags. Food waste reduction efforts focus on avoidable food waste. So most strategies are built on the US EPA model. So it's just a hierarchy table that outlines preferred to least preferred food waste. Next slide. So currently we compost in the Greater Terrace area using this Gore composting system. Basically it looks like this. There's a whole bunch of organics in a pile and it gets tarped. But wait a second, click, it's a little bit more advanced. So this system actually allows, it's like one of the most advanced systems, and it actually allows for optimal composting in a very controlled environment. And this system can produce grade A compost, which is basically defined as high-grade compost that meets the lowest coliform limit set in regulation. This means that users are able to successfully compost materials here that are otherwise not compostable in regular backyard composting systems. This includes meat scraps, bones, cardboard, and compostable plastic bags. And I say compostable because biodegradable plastic bags wouldn't be in this category. They actually are very poorly regulated and have a lot of plastic content in them a lot of the time. Next slide. So, what happens to compostables in the landfill? Our local bylaws prohibit the landfilling of organic wastes. So, that once again contributes, especially rotten food, contributes directly to production of methane gas in landfills. And methane is a greenhouse gas, once again, 25 times worse than carbon dioxide. Moisture content in these materials themselves contribute to the production of landfill leachate. So that's outside of rainfall in the landfill that could be reacting with things like metals. It actually, in itself, contributes to this leachate. To protect ground and surface water from leachate contamination, stringent management and monitoring is undertaken. While these are good measures to put in place, it's best not to produce it in the first place. Next. So, let's look at how our area compares waste-wise. Next slide. Awesome. So, here's the Greater Terrace area garbage produced in 2018. We've produced a grand total of 6,866 tons of garbage in our area. That's between curbside garbage at 1,952, drop-off garbage 733, and commercial garbage at 4,181. And next slide. Awesome. So this slide breaks down our waste composition of the garbage. So of that 6,866 tons of garbage generated in 2018, about 20% was compostable organics. And of this, 17.7% was comprised of food waste, and 13% was avoidable food waste. And so what kind of a number does that break down into? Next slide. So we know that 11% of our total garbage is avoidable food waste. But what about our organics? Because we divert that too. Well, our curbside organics, we produced 859 tons in 2018. And commercial organics, 560 tons. So we didn't do any composition studies on this, so we actually don't know how much compost is avoidable food waste. Next slide. All right, so this equates to 893 tons of avoidable food waste sent to landfill from the terrace area residents, and an unquantified amount of avoidable food waste sent to compost. And could you just hit the button? So, it's like an elephant, or actually more like 20 elephants. I just didn't want to populate the slide with, or wait, how many? 200 elephants. Yeah, about 200 African elephants, average sized, by the way. Next slide. So, most strategies are built around, once again, the food recovery hierarchy, which was developed by the US EPA. Similar to waste management hierarchy, this hierarchy illustrates preference for reducing surplus food and then feeding people, and so on. So composting is a strategy that we already implement in our district, in the terrace area, and the regional district anticipates future management approach for food waste reduction that will focus on source reduction as well as behavior change campaign. So, that. Awesome. And so we might be implementing, or we will be implementing the Love Food Hate Waste campaign, which is a national campaign across Canada. Awesome. Pass it off to Nikki now.
Sorry,
Oh, is this on? You'll have to excuse it looks like the formatting on our slides has gotten a little bit messed up, so we'll just sort of explain the text. Single-use items, another thing that we'll be looking at under a solid waste plan, and we thought we should touch on with you today, because it's a bit of a hot topic in the terrace area, are plastics, particularly single-use plastics. So what are they? They're plastic bags, cups, takeout containers, utensils, and straws. And most of them are made from virgin plastic. So in the US, a study done in the US in 2015 estimated that only 9% of all of our plastic, or their plastic, I suppose, US, is 9% was recycled. The remainder was incinerated or landfilled or accumulated in the natural environment. So I think that statistic, in the absence of having something relevant for Canada, is fairly representative. You know, only 9% is actually being recycled. So we really have to collectively make an effort to reduce the amount of plastic we consume. So there's a recent study in 2018 done by Environment Canada called Moving Canada Toward Zero Plastic Waste, What We Heard From You. And they recognize that Canadians are aware that plastic pollution, including consumption of single-use items, is an issue that needs to be addressed promptly in Canada and around the world. So that's excellent that our federal government is actually recognizing the issue. And each year, 8 million tons of plastic waste enter the ocean. That's a staggering amount. And plastic waste and marine litter, which breaks down into microplastics, they pose a serious threat to the health of our oceans, waterways, and our well-being. Also, so that's just plastics on its own, and I know that we often think that paper products are a good solution, and in certain instances they can be. However, paper and cardboard also have their own problems. Although they don't persist in the environment, their production consumes non-renewable resources, and it's really energy intensive. For example, the production of a disposable paper cup requires 2.5 times its finished weight of raw wood. So 2.5 times the amount of raw wood is used to produce a paper cup. It requires 6 times more steam, 13 times more power, and twice as much cooling water to produce than a styrofoam cup. So food packaging is another issue, and that we all rely on food packaging. Basically, nowadays you go into the grocery store, all food is packaged. And this is a prime example. I don't know if you can see here, the whole packaged banana, the irony of the packaged bananas. I know we don't often see it in the terrace area, but you know, things like bananas and oranges, they already come in their own packaging, so it's fairly redundant. Also, most packaging is made from virgin plastic. So non-recycled plastic. So modern lifestyles have really shifted since over the past, I'd say, 6 decades, from rural to urban. And then our food has now been designed to be convenient. So we have a real dependence on imported food, which is packaged so that it's fresh when it gets to us. So from the production of food itself, some of our food produces methane, such as meat from large feedlots. So production of the food itself to the production of plastic packaging and the transportation to ship our food, our large-scale global food production is really contributing to climate change. Next slide. So what we're looking at doing in the terrace area currently under our new solid waste management plan, so are some options and solutions for reducing single-use items. So we'll likely be focusing on behavior change. And I think a behavior change campaign will look at ways to influence behavior change through education and awareness, and we'll probably leverage on materials that are already developed by Metro Vancouver and the City of Victoria, the Capital Regional District, who are currently leaders in the province. We'll continue to lobby provincial governments for manufacturers to rethink the type and quantity of packaging they use for their products. I know I often get annoyed when I get something triple wrapped in a hard clamshell, and it almost you need multiple tools just to pry it open. It's just excessive packaging. And we'll be looking at ways to lobby the provincial government through the Union of BC Municipalities and the Product Stewardship Council to really rethink, because recycling is not enough, and we really need to rethink the reduction of packaging. So other things that we'll be looking at doing is, although we cannot implement a ban ourselves on, like the City of Victoria recently has done, implemented a plastic bag ban, we cannot do that ourselves because we do not hold business licenses. We may look at developing a model bylaw for our member municipalities to adopt. And we'll also be looking at supporting local champions who are implementing pilot programs like exchange programs for containers and cups. I know like Xander's is currently doing that, and there's other restaurants, Bluefin that's using compost, and A&W using compostable straws and things. So we'll be looking at focusing on that behavior change. So that's the end of our presentation.